Greetings, Mark Rang here, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun, and today we're going to talk about housing with the Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition Executive Director, Sara Butterfield. Sara, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Good, and Josh Brustin, and Josh is the chair of the board?
That's right.
Chair of the board, and you have something to do with Pinkham Real Estate, I hear.
I do. I am one of the owners of Pinkham Real Estate in North Conway.
I've heard that, so good. All right, so I guess one thing, Sara, maybe to start with, because it just seemed, you know, housing is such an amorphous thing, and you guys do these things called charrettes, and you know, most people don't even know what a charrette is. But explain what that Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition is, to start with.
Sure. The MWVHC is a 501c3 nonprofit advocacy organization that covers the 13 communities of the New Hampshire Mount Washington Valley, as well as the main communities of Freiburg and Brownfield. We are focused on education and advocacy to ensure that there's an adequate supply of affordable rental and for sale housing in our communities.
So, Josh, how do you do that?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Oh, let's talk about the charrette first.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do it at the end, but the charrette is coming up a week from Monday, I think it is. And Rob, you have a little graphic on that if you want to just throw that up, and we can talk over it. So there it is. And what is that?
We're super excited about the charrette, and you can absolutely weigh in on this. The charrette is an opportunity for the community to be involved in a process that takes a property, a piece of land, that's either vacant or maybe has some buildings on it. And you take that land, a number of people will go to that property, look at it, and then it's a one-day process of a number of different professionals coming together, whether it's a financing professional, an engineer, an architect, a real estate professional. We come together and we say, okay, what can we do with this property based on the zoning ordinances that are currently in place? And how much can we do with it to encourage affordable homes and or condos or rental apartments to be built on this property? How can we maximize this property within the zoning regulations that we have? So it's a visual exercise, but what's really cool about it is that the community also gets involved. And so we have public listening sessions prior to actually doing this work. We pinpoint the land, then we go to the public and say, okay, here's what we're working with. What would you like to see done with this property? And so we take their input, and with that in mind, then we have a design day the following day where we actually turn this into kind of a visual exercise on paper. By the end of that day, we say, this is what you wanted, this is what we came up with based on current restrictions, regulations. And what it ends up doing is it will demonstrate to you that it'll show you what the roadblocks are that are in the way of making that idea a reality.
So Sara, is this charrette about one specific property?
Yes, this year we're looking at the county-owned land in Ossipee. It's where the county complex is by the jail, the nursing home, courthouse, etc. So we're going to be focused on that piece of property of about 400 acres.
So where are you in that process of looking at that property? Have you done layouts and all that?
We're gathering information. We've had a lot of support from the county forester in gathering mapping for soil testing, forest composition, what it's currently being used as. So we're gathering that information now. And then our engineers will create a current conditions plan, and then on the day of is when we really dive into the design.
So on Monday, how much work have you done, and what are you going to be presenting? Is this sort of like, oh, here it is, we want ideas, or you guys have already done this work and this is what we think?
No, yeah, we're really starting from scratch almost on Monday with the listening sessions. So the idea is that this is an opportunity for the community to come out and say, here's what we'd like to see in our area. Maybe that's a cluster of tiny homes, maybe it's apartment buildings, maybe it's single family homes. So that's when the community comes out, weighs in and says what they want the design team to do. And then we will have our professionals gather. So we do the listening session on Monday, a second listening session Tuesday, and then the design team will get together on Wednesday, the 25th, and spend that whole day creating the design based on that input that they've received from the community.
And I guess, you know, I mean, as a developer and as a realtor, you know, and I think as a not a developer, but think who's paying for it? Like who pays for the coalition to begin with? Like who pays your salary?
Yeah, we have incredible support from New Hampshire Housing. They're our a major donor that supports us, and then it's just community support. Honestly, local businesses and private members are our major supporters, and then for events like this, we have awesome sponsors like New Hampshire Housing, Costantino Real Estate, Huggins Hospital, Cooper Cargill Chant, Maine Health with Memorial Hospital, and Union Bank. So they all
Pinkham Real Estate.
And Pinkham Real Estate, as well as others, have really stepped up to contribute to making this event happen.
This is an unusual charrette for us. We've done this in the past, and typically, for example, we'll use a specific property in Conway, and it will be very Conway specific as a result of that, what we end up doing. This is a little different because this is county land. And so we were actually approached by Carroll County by a subcommittee, which includes a number of state representatives and officials. They came to us, the Housing Coalition, and said, we've got this big piece of land, over 400 acres, and we're interested in knowing what we can do with it. We could use your help. And so from that initial meeting, we said, well, this could be a perfect spot for a charrette because it's county land, it's 400 acres. Every town in Carroll County is now involved in this, so it's not just Conway specific. And so everybody's impacted by this. We have politicians involved, and so maybe the results of this can impact something at a state level, at a local level. It's a higher profile charrette. And so as a result of it, we think that more eyes are going to be on it. And it's going to, we hope that it demonstrates and really casts a wider net out there and shows people what can and can't be done with the property, so that ultimately the charrette's not just an exercise, it's an exercise that actually turns into change.
So, I mean, if you're the county, it's the county, like you're saying, there are state reps involved, and the county is run by the commissioners, but it's really overseen by the county delegation. So they could easily go to a developer and say, come on in and give us an idea. So why do they go to you as sort of an intermediary and not just go to some big housing developer?
Well, this service is free, and so this is something that we involve in. Boy, it's a unbelievable effort that goes into this. So we're asking an architect to take 3 days out of their life for no money and come be part of this process. We are asking engineers to come in and do the same thing. It's a lot of time involved. We're asking a lot of lenders, commercial and residential lenders, to come in and be involved. Landscape architects are coming in to be involved in this. They're coming in, giving their time, going to this property and doing what would take months in literally one day. And then from there, the results, maybe then we approach a developer and say, as a result of what we've done, as a result of the changes that happened because of it, now you actually do have an incentive to come in to develop this at a profit that makes sense for you.
And Sarah, and so say again where you are in the process. Like, do you have an idea? Like 400 acres, because I know they raise blueberries and they have hay, and the ground is very fertile. There's 400 acres is a big chunk of land. So there's going to be some pushback from saying, we don't want housing covering the whole thing.
Right.
So where are you in that process of how you would utilize that 400 acres?
Sure. Well, the Lands and Annex Subcommittee, which is the group that we're working with, partnering with, they were formed in 2023 to make a recommendation to the county commissioners on what to do with this land. They've already made it clear that they want to keep parts of it for agricultural purposes, and then there's other parts of it that are wetlands or are not conducive to building as it is. So the intention is not to develop the full 400 acres, and that's already very clear in our process. So where we'll go from here is to determine what parts of it make sense to put development onto.
What do you think? Like how many, like what's going to go there? What do you think should go there?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to wait for the professionals to make a decision on that.
You've got to come to the event.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
It's an unknown right now.
It's the big reveal.
But
Exactly.
to your point, I think what's going to end up happening is that because they want to preserve that land, and that's very important to them, and it will ultimately be important to the county, it doesn't mean you can't use the actual quantity of land to impact how many units you can put in there. So you have 400 acres. From a density standpoint, you can then take a small chunk of that, and you can push in housing into a smaller portion, but you can still use the density of the entire property. So it's kind of the best of both worlds that way.
So, but clearly, I mean, you're all about affordable housing, right? So clearly you're not going to be recommending $1 million condos there.
Correct.
So it's going to be affordable, like what do you, I mean, just help me out here. What do you think it's going to be? A big, like an apartment building like Saco Woods? Or is it going to be freestanding cottages like they're putting up in Ridgeline? Or what do you think?
Well, go ahead, please.
No, I will say that in past charrettes, we've seen a combination of housing being what pencils out to work in the end. So maybe some multifamily, some single family home that are smaller and affordable. And then in order to make the project pencil out, maybe you'll also see some larger homes. So it's hard to say before having the design team really dive in, but in the past, that's what has kind of worked to make the numbers work.
And the idea is that this isn't just an exercise; it's a reality. And developers aren't going to do this, unless you're an investor. It's a nonprofit that comes in and build apartment houses. A developer is not going to come in here and do it pro bono. They have to make their profit. So to your point, it'll most likely be a combination of market rate and affordable.
And what do you think, if you're guessing, how many units?
I really couldn't take a guess.
I couldn't take a guess either, because we don't exactly know where we're honing in on yet. It's going to be based on what the OSIP zoning ordinance allows, and that really is something that will start penciling out the day of the event. So we really don't.
But it's going to be more than 10. I mean, it's going to be 50 or 100 or.
We're hoping hundreds.
Hundreds.
Potentially.
Okay, that's right.
It's a big, it's a big property.
Right.
Now, there's no town water and sewer there, so that's going to impact how much we can build.
Right.
But then you maybe look at where is town water and sewer in OSIP? What would it cost to connect to that property, and how would that impact what you can do there if you were to connect? So it actually, it gives you some roadmaps to potential solutions.
Yeah. And what else? I mean, Sarah and both of you actually, where do you think we are now? I mean, everybody knows that housing's tight, blah blah blah, but I mean, at what point does the market, work its way? I mean, you're a private business, you're a realtor, so you obviously that's your business. I mean, where does the rubber meet the road in terms of how much the coalition is needed to satisfy housing demands, and how much should we let, so to speak, the market just work its way? I mean, there's a lot of units being built around.
Sure. Well, the Housing Coalition was founded in 2010, and because there was a need for additional affordable housing in our area, and that need has only increased in the time since then. The lack of affordable housing has really become more and more of a crisis point as we have continued to not develop in this state. So I think that I would love to have that problem where the Housing Coalition is no longer needed and the market solves the issue, but I don't think that that's a near-term issue that we're going to face.
No, I mean, and I think maybe a unique perspective in that I'm kind of on the front lines from a sales standpoint. I'm on that front line. So I see who's coming in and purchasing homes in this area. And one of the beautiful things about living here, and one of the problems, is that we live in a beautiful four-season resort area that's surrounded by national forest. So there's only so much room to grow. And so it is always a supply and demand issue. And right now, the mix of second home to primary homeowners in this valley, in Conway specifically, is something like right around 50-50.
Really?
But that's
I mean ownership, but not
ownership.
But people who are buying, there's certainly a higher percentage of people who are buying homes now are from out of state. Right?
So what's going to happen is now it's a 50-50. So what you're going to continue to see is, as homes come on the market, it's going to be 55-45. Then it's going to be 60-40. Then it's going to be 65. It's going to turn into like a Western ski resort where it's very, very lopsided.
Oh, you think it's going to increasingly be more?
It'll be increasingly second homes. And because they're just going to be, because again, supply and demand, this is an incredibly desirable second home area 2.5 hours from Boston. And now with remote work, those deeper pockets have the ability to purchase here, even if we continue to see appreciation in home values, because it's a uniquely second home area. And so they're going to continue to outspend the locals when it comes. And for example, I looked at the statistic this morning. Last year, the median home sale price in Conway was $460,000. This year, even though we see more inventory and we're actually seeing more days on market, the median home sale price right now in Conway, not including condos, is right around $500,000, and now starting to creep over $500,000.
I mean, that's so far above most people's.
You'd have to make $120,000 to be able to afford a home in Conway right now. and who's making that kind of money here? Very few people. And so it's not, we talk about affordable, we're talking about, not just, someone in the service industry.
Right.
We're talking about lawyers, engineers, doctors who can't purchase a home.
And what about the planning board, Sarah? Are you working, is the coalition working with the planning board? Because I know they talk, one is that people complain about just making it easier to build, fewer granite curbing and all that. So does the planning board have a role in this? I mean, on one hand, they're being, in fact, I have a column in today's paper about this new commercial restriction they're trying to do is not letting buildings over 15,000 square feet outside of a little section on the strip, which I think is just the wrong approach, but that's me. But at the same time, it's an interesting conundrum, because at the same time we're trying to restrict development, commercial development, but the more you open the spigot for housing, the more people you have, and the more development you're going to have. Like how does that come together? I know it's more of a philosophical question, and it's probably not germane to this, but how do we square those round pegs?
Yeah, I'll just say that it is an extremely complicated topic, and we do hope to be a partner to all of the planning boards in our catchment area, those 13 communities, and we are working with the Conway Planning Board, or the town of Conway, I should say, in the HOP process, where they're taking a look with the master plan at making changes to a lot of the different zoning that's in the Conway area. So we're trying to work closely on that project and others.
It's a really cool time. Sarah and I both sat on there was a HOP grant to the town to look at our current zoning ordinances and say, what can you do as a result of the master plan process? We worked in collaboration with the consulting company that helped with the master plan. The town received some grant money to form a committee to look at zoning, specifically affordable housing. And we were lucky enough to sit on that committee, the result of which was presented to the planning board. The planning board is now taking those recommendations, and they now have received another grant to actually redo all of the zoning in Conway. So there's a lot that's about to happen here, and I think the coalition is going to be, hopefully, a really good resource for the town to help educate the community.
What do you think the town should do? I mean, outside of the few things, like I think one of the ideas I heard is to delay property taxes for new homeowners. Have you heard that one?
Not for necessarily new homeowners, but I think one idea would be to give incentives to developers to come in and build affordable homes with potentially not having to pay property taxes for a certain amount of time, so that the profit they need to see they can actually make that happen. So that's just an example. A deferment or a tax, or just no taxes at all, no property taxes for X number of years. That's just one.
Any other thoughts, Sarah, what the planning board, what the town should do to loosen things up?
Well, I think that the town has made steps. We had 2 warrant articles that the Housing Coalition supported this spring that passed. One that allowed for additional access to ADUs for private homeowners to add to their own properties. Now we have one ADU by right and the second by exception, is my understanding. And then, like Josh was saying, there's the other warrant article that we supported had to do with those tax incentives for people who are redeveloping property in an affordable way. So I think that continuing to go down those kind of directions is going to be super helpful.
It's the right planning board at the right time right now.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and the ADUs, I was reading something about how a big public company in California, I guess they're very progressive or open about ADUs, and it's this big public company who's making these manufactured ADUs. And you just, if you get a backyard, whoop, there goes these stick in the backyard, and your Uncle Bob could stay there, or whoever needs a place to stay.
That sounds cool. I mean, everything's starting to catch up to this need. Right. And so if something like that can, if it can be duplicated, brought here, and it's affordable for someone to do it, I think the community will take advantage of something like that.
And the Housing Coalition, you said, Sarah, has been around since 2010. This has got to be the biggest project, the county project. Is that kind of the biggest one you've tackled? What's sort of the history? And I know you're kind of new, but...
We have a long history of doing charrettes. It's typically been one of our large annual pieces of programming. We have not done one since 2021, and I would agree that this one, being on the county land, is one of our largest, maybe most influential charrettes that we've had. So yes, that's one of our larger pieces of programming.
So have you done others that have been on small, I mean, back 4 years, three or 4 years ago, were they on just smaller pieces of land, or were they more general you remember?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, I do. This is the second one that I'm participating in, and the last one I think was 2021, and we had a property on right on the Kankamagas Highway that we worked on. And
did anything come of it?
what happens with the charrette like this is things come of it indirectly. So it's one thing, it's one tool that you can use to help educate the community planning boards that can really show people in a very specific way, in a very visual way, what's in the way. So it helps kind of pave the road towards making change. So we didn't go to that property and develop it and turn it into 400 homes. That didn't happen.
Right.
But it didn't happen because when we penciled it out at the end of the day, we worked 8 hours on it, and we used everything we could with zoning that was in place, and then we did a pro forma. The developer could not have made a profit on that property based on the zoning that was currently in place.
Interesting. So the everyone's favorite topic is short-term rentals. And George Epstein, who's our columnist, and we do an interview once a month, and he's a very colorful guy. He says you'll solve the housing problem if you just get rid of all the STRs. And I don't believe that. I think there's some truth to it. How important is and start with you, Sarah, how important do you think the short-term rental, how much of an impact do short-term rentals have on properties?
That's a really challenging question. It's a constant topic of conversation. I know that a lot of people are feeling it because they're experiencing them in their own neighborhoods. But it is true that the area has traditionally had a large mix of second homes or homes that have not been occupied full-time. So I'm not sure I can. Josh, can you speak to that a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, we could spend a whole show talking about this, and maybe we should at some point. Because you get a lot of things thrown around, and so I finally said, you know what, let's try to separate kind of fact from fiction. And so I did a kind of a deep dive into everything short-term related, everything short-term rentals related that I could find that would help actually sit across from a table with someone and say, all right, what's reality versus kind of what people think it is. I think what's very important when it comes to affordable housing is to separate this. I think you have to separate short-term rentals into two categories. One is that person next to me that's just noisy on the weekends.
Right.
I just don't want them there.
Right.
And then the second thing is that home that's there getting in the way of creating more affordable housing? And without getting into too many specifics, my data, the data that I've collected, and just my personal feeling is that it's not. And just one quick example. So to George's point, if you ban short-term rentals in Conway, for example, say we have 500 short-term rental owners right now in Conway, which is a small percentage of the total. You ban those in Conway, and those 500 short-term rentals don't go away. They'll be grandfathered. And so they can continue to short-term rent. So it's not like it's opening up 500 properties, just as a starting point. And the second thing, and this is where maybe being kind of in the front lines as a realtor is that we know who are buying properties in the area. We know how important short-term rentals are to them. There is a line of people that could care less about short-term rentals that are second home buyers. And so if those homes are freed up at that price point, that's an affordable price point for a second homeowner, whether they can rent it or not.
Yeah, but I mean, and we have 2 minutes left, so, and I think we're a little bit on the opposite sides of that thing. But I mean, just anecdotally, it's just hard to believe that, freeing up houses at high ends don't trickle down. I mean, I have a friend who has 2 places on Birch Hill, side by side. So the house next to him came up on the market, and it's just he and his wife, and he bought it. And the only reason why he could buy it is so he could rent it. He wanted to protect himself. So if the short-term rental weren't allowed, he wouldn't have bought it because he just wasn't going to leave it there and sit there, and someone else would have bought the house, whether it's a vacationer, a second homeowner or local. But
yeah, and again, we can spend a whole, maybe we could spend a little more going into a deeper dive.
Yeah, sure.
A deeper dive on it. But really, I think that to me, the key is the only way this is going to work for affordable homes for rent and for sale ultimately is that we have to create more housing.
Yeah, good. And is there any number of I know they always throw in like New Hampshire, we're short like 60,000 homes or something like that. Do you have any idea how many we're short here?
In Carroll County specifically, I don't know, but that is the understood statistic that 60,000 is what we need by 2030 in order to meet demand. And that is not factoring in the demand for the second homes. That's just primary homes needed.
I got a call from a local engineer. I know we're short on time. I got a local engineer, owner of an engineering firm, locally said, I have a new person coming in looking for a rental property. Can you help me? And so I did. I looked for a property.
You mean looking for a rental?
Looking for a rental property.
To stay there or buy and rent?
To rent. Just a rent.
Okay.
None, like 0 properties available. So just that's one person. So without having that data, it's a horribly difficult problem right now.
Absolutely. We have a 0.08% vacancy rate in Carroll County for rentals right now. So it's a really challenging problem for a lot of folks out there.
Yeah, and we have 1 minute left, and Sarah, if you have anything more to say about the charrette outside of encouraging people to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Just please come out. This process only works with public participation. So this is an opportunity for us to say, what would we like our community to look like, and actually have a chance to influence that. So I would say come out to the charrette. We'll do listening sessions on the evening of the 23rd and 24th, and then the charrette design day and public reveal will be the 25th. We also have a couple of other upcoming events. We'll be at Bark in the Park on the 21st. We have a Dine to Donate tonight at Tuckerman's Brewing in Conway, and we'll be at Giving Wednesday at the Red Parka on the 9th of October. And then stay tuned and follow our social media and our website for more details on State of Housing Breakfast, which is upcoming in either late October or early November. Date is to be determined on that.
Thank you so much for giving us.
Yeah.
No, this is great. And today is
letting us do
Thursday,
this.
September 12th, I believe. So just to let people know, this will be on our social media, on our digital platforms, and you guys can have it too. And hopefully, and I know it will be picked up on Valley Vision. I just want to give people a sense of where we are. So Josh, since you have feet in both the world of nonprofit and the real world, where do you think the market's going in general, the real estate? Is it softening at all?
Oh boy, it's a very challenging market. Again, we could have we can speak for 30 minutes about this. I'd love to, because it's a tough question, because we're still seeing some homes that are getting multiple offers, and then we're seeing some other ones that are on the market a little bit longer right now. But the fact that our median sale price is still trending up demonstrates that there's still demand.
Wow. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
Sarah,
you.
nice to meet you.
You as well.
Thank you, Mark.
Josh, as
Appreciate it.
always. Okay. Take care.